and welcome to GameSack. We are back with more hacks and homebrews.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool stuff, some very interesting hacks here. So
I think so.
Yeah, I do too. So let's stop talking and just get right on into it.
Atlantean by Aetherbyte is a cool homebrew for the TurboGrafx 16. I keep wanting to call it Atlantean, but then again I'm an idiot. This game is basically a derivative of the Defender formula. You're underwater and the screen scrolls back and forth on a looping playfield. Invaders are attacking and now it's up to you to blow them all up and save the people of Atlantis. The planet of Atlantis, that is, not the city. Sometimes the enemies will try to kidnap some of the innocent pink Atlanteans whose goal in life is to simply hang out at the bottom of the screen all day. Shoot the enemy and he'll drop the Atlantean. But if he's higher than, say, halfway up the screen, be sure to catch the little pink bastard and set him down. Otherwise they explode and die when they hit the ground. You have a limited number of bombs which will destroy all the enemies on the screen. If you press run, you blast forward in a burst of invincibility. The levels are divided up into distinct phases. At first you battle a few waves of enemies. After that you've got to dodge a whole bunch of mines. And this is where I used to lose a lot of ships until I got the pattern down. Then you have to face one last wave of enemies. After that you fight the evil boss monster who wants nothing other than to cause harm to the poor Atlanteans. And you can't use your bombs on these guys. After that you have a bonus round where you gotta catch falling Atlanteans who survive the attack. And after this is over, you're off to the next stage. This game is not very forgiving to those who haven't played it before. The controls have a lot of momentum to them when you try to turn around. Also, the movements of the enemies and their shots can be kinda herky-jerky, but the bosses and their fired shots move smoothly. Still, once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to get much further, and yes, the game does have an ending. What's really cool is that this game is actually on a HUD card, or turbo chip, or AB card. It's awesome that they did this, and this is the first new game for the system on a card in over 20 years. Sometimes it's kinda hard to get it working though. It has a 3D printed case which has a hard time fitting together with its cover thingy. It also has a full color manual which is cool. The graphics in the game are pretty nice and feature lots of overlapping parallax scrolling. However, I find it really interesting that this completely different planet has multiple wrecked statues of liberty in the background. The music is also great and never gets old, at least it didn't for me. Good stuff. It also saves your high scores to the system's internal RAM if you have a CD unit or a Turbo Booster Plus or one of those things, or of course a Duo. Just make sure you have enough available space, but it doesn't really need much. If you're interested in getting your own copy, check out Aetherbyte's website because sometimes they offer it for sale. You can also download some free TurboGrafx ROMs, like Santa Atlantean. This is basically a Christmas version of Atlantean. It also works as a very basic demo of the real game, so you can see if you'd enjoy the gameplay or not. Another cool homebrew for the TurboGrafx 16 is Hue Zero by Chris Covell. This one is a timed score attack game. Basically, you try to survive for 2 minutes and get the highest score you can. This is easier said than done, and you will die a lot at first, even though there are no other racers on the track with you. The secret to making your score climb faster is to constantly wiggle the D-pad back and forth. This also makes taking the curves much easier. Survive for 2 minutes and your final score is tallied. Graphically, this game is a great proof of concept of the turbo running Mode 7-like visuals, and the music is really cool too. But be warned, because playing this will give you carpal tunnel syndrome and you will need surgery to fix it. I recommend using a joystick. Speaking of Mode 7, there's a Sonic Mario Kart thingy on the Genesis from Steph. This is mostly a proof of concept demo and there's no real gameplay or sound here. But the screen can scale and rotate and you have complete control over it despite looking pretty blocky.
Here's a few music hacks for the Super Nintendo. The gameplay for each of these games hasn't changed, and you'll need an SD2 SNES or an emulator capable of handling the MSU1 chip to play these. The first one is for F-Zero. This game had a good soundtrack to begin with. I really enjoyed these new tracks, and the heavy and often screaming guitar fits perfectly with the fast-paced racing action. It's definitely fun to race with an arranged soundtrack. My only complaint is that the music level is too low and the sound effects kind of drown it out. Have a listen. Done listening? Okay, I'm gonna move on. The next one is Super Metroid. This is another game with a great original soundtrack and likely why it was chosen for this treatment. I've always liked it because of the ambience, and at certain times you felt that something large and menacing was close by, and at any moment you're going to find yourself in a battle for your life. Or at other times it's just good ambience as you're trying to figure out where you need to go and what you need to do next. This hack really multiplies these feelings and made my experience with this game even deeper if that's possible. Have a quick listen to this one. Okay, that's enough. Moving on. Lastly, we have The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Besides a music hack, this game got a fully animated intro. I like the animation and I think it did a great job of setting the story in motion. But I'm torn because Link has a voice and I don't think I want Link to have a voice.
I don't think I'm needed for that. And I wouldn't want to carry around a heavy sword and shield all day and miss out on home-cooked meals like this.
I've always liked him quiet. Still, the intro playing on my Super Nintendo is really interesting to see. The MSU1 chip does a pretty good job with the FMV here. As far as the music go, it's great and it's what you'd expect it to be. And that's a fully orchestrated soundtrack with violins, trumpets, kettle drums, harps, and every other instrument. The thing is, it doesn't sound new to me. All the tracks here sound just like any other arranged soundtrack I've heard for this game, and that's where they were probably taken from. But the cool thing is that I'm actually listening to it while I'm playing this game. These three games are among my many favorites for the system. These hacks sound great and add an extra layer to make them a richer experience. That being said, the original soundtracks are what I prefer as that's where my fond memories are. Still though, if you have the ability to play these games with the new music, then by all means do it. It's a great experience.
There's lots of hacking in the Genesis community. A lot of the time is to take an original game like Golden Axe here and redo the colors to make it look more like the arcade or just more aesthetically pleasing. I really like this Golden Axe recolor which was done by Pyron. I'd say this is how the game should have looked originally. And it could have too. This is running on a real Genesis and the file size of the game remains basically exactly the same size as the original. Which version do you think looks better? Pyron recolored lots and lots of games including Golden Axe 2 here. Sometimes the changes are really subtle and you just don't notice a difference unless you view them side by side like this. Personally, I like the recolor of the original Golden Axe a little more. I like the original game more as well, but this one does have good music even though that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. One game that really needed a recolor was the Genesis version of Outrun. Look how dark the original here is. The recolor looks much more like the arcade. It's more pleasant all around, and I don't know why they chose to make it so damn dark to begin with. Final Fight CD on the Sega CD even got a recolor. I always thought that this one looked pretty good as is, but check it out. It's now way more accurate to the arcade. Hager now looks a lot less yellow as well. And look at the detail the color change makes visible. Before, after, before, after, before, after. Crazy. This is pretty damn cool. Recoloring games isn't the only thing that people are doing. Some are even messing around with the sound. For example, this is how the original Sonic the Hedgehog sounds on the Genesis. And you all remember those cool rotating bonus stages, right? Well, this hack changes the drum sounds. And it also makes the bonus stage rotation super smooth. You can even put in a Game Genie code on your retail copy of the game to get the smooth rotation into bonus stages. Not sure why Sega just didn't do this to begin with. Pretty neat hack even if you only have a Game Genie and no flash cart. A gentleman by the name of Linkwee, I'm sure I mangled that, decided to put the arcade version voices in the Genesis version of Altered Beast. Here's what the original sounds like, followed by the hacked copy, both playing on my Genesis.
Rise from your grave. Rise from your grave. Power up. Power up.
Welcome to your doom. Welcome to your doom. Oh!
That's really cool, and it makes it feel much more like the arcade. In fact, the changed voices were one of the things I complained about in Altered Beast back when I reviewed it. I'd like to see the colors improved to more match the arcade version as well. What's that? Looks like Pyron was 2 steps ahead of me because he did just that. The recolor combined with the new voices is pretty cool, and I really enjoy playing it this way. Thanks for doing this, guys. This is awesome. And of course, you all remember Street Fighter II Special Champion Edition on the Genesis, right? It had absolutely fantastic color and even better voices. Watch and listen. You may think that can't be improved upon, but oh man, can it ever. Capcom was really lazy when they made this one, and they were very uneducated when it came to the Genesis hardware. But Steph rewrote the sound driver for the Z80 processor, which improved the voices. A lot. Combined with Pyron's color hack, the game now looks and sounds much better. There's even a filtered version of the patch that you can apply if you prefer it.
You win. You win. You win.
Overall, this is a tremendous and much needed improvement to an already great game. Super Street Fighter II on the Genesis has even worse voices despite it having 40 mega power! Once again, Steph rewrote the sound driver and it definitely helps.
You win. You win.
Also, work has been done by Max Ferris to replace some of the backgrounds with the arcade backgrounds for greater accuracy and detail. So the game you're looking at here has improved colors, improved voices, and some new backgrounds. The gameplay still suffers from slowdown though. Still, this is awesome to see. Even the Sega Master System Sonic game has a hack to upgrade its sound. This is what it originally sounds like in PSG form. The music was done by Yuzo Koshiro of Street Racer and Acts of Rage fame, by the way. Or Streets of Rage ActRaiser, you know what I mean. Anyway, the game was hacked to take advantage of the FM sound chip that some Master Systems have, or a power-based converter mini with FM. Here's how that sounds. It's not 100% perfect, but come on, I love that people are doing things like this.
All right, here we go. You know, some really interesting hacks so far, don't you think? I mean...
Well, yeah, definitely some interesting hacks. I like the interesting homebrews,
The homebrew, yeah, for sure. Those are definitely cool, but, you know, it's just amazing to me, some of these hacks, like the detail they go into, things that they want to change, just like even just little bits of a game, you know, just seemingly to not important, but they're important to some people. But
oh, absolutely. It's very interesting to see, in fact. So interesting that we've got another half of the episode left to go, so let's just get back into it.
here's Final Fantasy IV, which is a homebrew for the Famicom. That's right, just in case 16-bit isn't good enough for you, the Chinese have made it available for you 8-bit lovers. With that being said, I'm not able to play very far without getting stuck. It's okay though, because you can at least see what the game looks and sounds like. After playing for a while, I think the port turned out really well. The music is good and the game flows nicely. Just an observation, but here I am in a cave and every battle I get into has a forest in the background. I laughed at this, but I wonder why a more suitable background wasn't placed here. From what I can see, the game follows the Super Nintendo version fairly closely. Even though I'm not a big fan of RPGs, I can still respect how the game turned out. On a side note, there was an actual Final Fantasy IV in development for the Famicom, and even though it was 80% complete, it was cancelled. Here's some homebrew games from Collector Vision. John Lester, or as you might know him better by the tag Gamester81, is partly responsible for bringing these titles out. The first title is called Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death on the Super Nintendo. This was a flash game originally developed by Studio Pina in 2011 as a tribute to the MSX. It was inspired by Montezuma's Revenge and the Atari 2600 classic called Hero. Now it's being ported to other consoles like my beloved Super Nintendo. This little puzzle platformer is a fun game where you find treasures and items needed to open up new pathways. Controlling Sydney takes a bit of getting used to and he feels a bit floaty, but it's nothing that you can't handle. The demo version that I'm playing here has a few glitches in it, but I'm sure once the final version is available to purchase, everything will be ready. This is definitely a title I'll buy, as I really did enjoy the demo. There's also a version coming out for the TurboGrafx-16 which isn't as far along, but it is coming. It looks to be very close to the Super Nintendo port. Next up is Meteor Swarm on the NES. Basically, this is asteroids on the NES, but I think it's a little easier to control. There's two options to help you out while playing. The first one is called hyperspace. If you get into a tight situation and are about to die, you can press a button to go into hyperspace. Essentially, your ship disappears, and it's hard to tell where it reappears, but it can get you out of a tight spot. The second one is a shield that you can turn on when you're about to get smashed. This will destroy meteors around you, but you can't shoot while it's activated. If you like asteroids, give it a shot. This is Game On Retro Championships for the NES. You could compete with other gamers out there at the Game On Expo in Phoenix that Gamester puts on every year, which this kart was made for. Just like the Nintendo Championship kart, this one has a time limit. You play a portion of 3 games trying to get as far as you can and as high of a score as you can in 6 minutes and 21 seconds. That's a nice round number, isn't it? The first game you play is Sydney Hunter, where you collect as many gems as you can and try to reach the end of the level as fast as you can. You get a bigger bonus the faster you make it to the end. The NES version here is a fun platformer and challenging in spots. The second game is a racing game called Pedal to the Metal. The object here is to pass as many cars as you can before you reach a checkpoint. The more cars you pass, the bigger your score. For me, this one was a bit strange to play. Passing cars was definitely challenging, as some of them seem to go in the same direction as you no matter what. The final level is from Meteor Swarm. 200 great copies of this championship kart were produced, as well as a limited edition gold kart.
This is Sydney Hunter and the Curse of the Mayans, coming soon to the Wii U from Collector Vision. Since we covered the Super Nintendo version, we should probably mention this too. Now, this is technically an indie game, but many indie games are technically homebrew. I got a question for you guys. Where should we draw that line? What do you think about indie versus homebrews? Same or different? Let us know. Anyway, once again, Sydney Hunter is the action hero, but the game itself is completely different. This time he finds an ancient Mayan pyramid, runs in, and gets trapped. What an idiot. This time Sydney has a whip for a weapon instead of a boomerang, and he collects jewels for points and other items which will help him out. Honestly, the game reminds me a lot of Montezuma's Revenge peppered with a dash of Castlevania. Just a dash. Everything is retro styled, including most of the music. Instead of collecting idols to unlock the next area like in the original version, you collect colored keys that you need to find and whatnot. Now, it's not finished, but I've had fun with what I've played so far. It's not overly easy either, so if you're looking for a challenge, it might be up your alley. The difficulty is by design, not attributed to the controls or anything like that. The controls are actually pretty good. Justice Beaver is another game coming to the Super Nintendo from Collector Vision. That's right, Justice Beaver, not Justin Bieber. This one was funded on Indiegogo in early 2015. Again, this one is not finished and it doesn't have any sound effects or bosses yet. Anyway, you play as a beaver out to restore swift and righteous justice where none can be found. But there are some beings who do not want justice in this land, like snowmen. Snowmen hate justice. You hop around and collect fruit. Sometimes you'll be able to collect ammo. This will let you shoot a limited number of bullets. Sometimes you even get bombs to blow open new passages. Some of the hits seem kinda cheap, like this ice dagger coming from the side of the wall, which seems impossible to avoid. Also, there doesn't yet seem to be a way to refill your life once you've taken damage. At least you have a life meter though. And it's a brand new Super Nintendo game, and those don't happen very often. The graphics are nice and bright, and a lot of the music is fairly catchy as well. The levels seem well designed for the most part, and there's definitely some exploring to do in the later rounds. I could see this one being an actual legit release for the system back in the day. The game's coming along nicely, so look forward to bringing justice to your beaver soon.
This is Castlevania Chorus of Mysteries, which is a hack of the original Castlevania game for the NES by Optimon and Dr. Mario. Remember when Konami's Castlevania games had musical themes in their titles like Aria of Sorrow or Harmony of Dissonance? As you can see here, these guys did the same thing here with Chorus of Mysteries. Ooh, so mysterious! Once you start playing this hack, it's really hard to feel the original Castlevania game at all since so much has been changed. The main character here is Armin, and he's not going after Dracula. According to the storyline, Alucard defeated Dracula 3 years before Armin started out on his quest to find answers to his past. These answers are going to be found in the castle of Count Olrox, who was a servant of Dracula. Graphically, the game has been overhauled completely. The backgrounds are all new, and you only get the slightest hint of the original level design from Castlevania. They're really nice to look at in some spots, and there's a lot of variety between them so they stay fresh. One thing that they left in that I really like is hidden items. You know, the ones where you kneel down in a certain spot and an item appears? You have your whip, which can be upgraded 2 times just like always. All the sub-weapons are present here, and there's even a new one. Well, it's not a weapon, but it'll still help you. It's a laurel plant, and it will give you momentary invincibility. This is nice in certain areas due to the game's difficulty. Yes, this game is super hard just like the original Castlevania. Not only because of enemy placement and patterns, but because of control as well. Armin's whip isn't the most accurate whip out there. I mean, look at this, I'm trying to whip this candle. In the original game, this candle would be gone, but not in this one. It'll happen on enemies as well, but luckily not as much. And speaking of the enemies, most of them and even the bosses in this game are new. You'll see a few that you know from before, but the vast majority are different. And the music is also completely new. Most of it is actually enjoyable and has a Castlevania feel to it. But there are a few songs here that just really hurt your ears though. Listen to this one. Now this is what I call dissonance, and wow, is it uncomfortable. Overall, this is a great hack of the original game. It really does feel like a new game altogether. If only the hit detection with the whip was on point. Other than that, you should play this hack, it's a really good time. Here's Super Mario Bros. 3 mix for the NES by Southbird. This is quite an interesting hack of Super Mario Bros. 3. Starting the game, you can choose between Mario, Luigi, and Toad. Toad is cool because he wasn't playable in the original game. After playing as all 3 characters, I've decided that there's really no difference between them besides their looks. As I first started playing it, I really didn't think much of it as the first world relates a lot to the first Super Mario Bros. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when you've played the original game to death, playing these levels doesn't feel all that special. But that feeling didn't last long because the rest of the game is way different. The thing that I really like about this title is that it incorporates elements from many different Mario games. The more I played, the more I wanted to see what else Southbird had done. Like the second world here where you play many aspects of Super Mario Bros. 2. You can pick up Shy Guys here just like in that game. And you also get to fight Birdo, Mouser, and Wart. There's also nods to the Game Boy games. You even get the rabbit ears from Mario Land 2. And this is awesome as many of my favorite memories revolve around these titles. This one is packed with nostalgia and it even lets you save your game so you don't have to beat it in one sitting. Not only are the backgrounds nostalgic, but so is the music as well. But the soundtrack isn't all amazing. Take a listen to the remix of this song. Wow, does this mess with your head or what? While the game has a lot going for it, it does have its share of problems ranging from graphical glitches here and there to some serious slowdown with a lot of sprites cluttering the screen. Also, I think a bit more work could have been done to make backgrounds more consistent with enemy sprites and icons, as well as things like this vine that matches part of the background. But these problems don't make the game unenjoyable, and it's still a solid hack. If you're a Mario fan, you owe it to yourself to give this a shot and let your memories run wild.
And there you go. There's some more hacks and homebrews. What do you think of some of the ones you played?
The majority of them I actually really did like. Of course, I'm not a big RPG fan, so the Final Fantasy one I really didn't care for. But everything else is interesting, and I think some of the ones that the GameStar 81's involved with are really cool. I think they've got some good ideas for them. But we'll see. We'll see what happens when they actually get released.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this episode. Those color hacks and the sound hacks, that was great fun.
Yes, the sound hacks are really good. I did enjoy those.
Yeah, cool. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let us know of some hacks and homebrews that we should check out. And in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.
Classic Gamer recently accepted our challenge to find the best select button. Now he's challenged us to find the best rubber feet on a console.
We accept! My first choice for best rubber feet on a console goes to the mighty Sega Master System. Why? Because they don't have tiny, wimpy little rubbers. They got these long rubbers to make sure the console stays in place. The Sega Master System is the bomb!
Alright, my first choice for best rubber feet on a home console are actually going to be on a handheld. This was my first choice, and it's the Game Boy, and I thought, man, this thing has amazing rubber feet on it. And when I went to go grab my own, I realized that I was the one that actually put the rubber feet on there. The console didn't come with it. I felt that it needed it, and I put it on there. So these are just not there for real. So this disqualifies this system, and it's out of there. So
Dave's an idiot. I pick a real console like the PlayStation 2 for my second choice. Why? Because look at these rubber feet. They are amazing. You can pick them off with your fingernail. You can rotate them 90 degrees, even 180 degrees if that's what you need to do. This is amazing. The PlayStation 3 also does the same thing. However, they kind of failed at the PlayStation 1. Look at this. There's no rubber. They used felt. What the hell? I felt this was a bad choice. No pun intended. And what really chaps my ass is the PlayStation 4. You turn it around and it doesn't even seem to have rubber feet, but it actually does. It has two little rubber slivers. What the hell is up with this? Sorry, Sony, you suck. I'm buying an Xbox.
Okay, my second choice for runner-up for best rubber feet is going to be on the Turbo Duo. Now, as we all know, this is a great system that doesn't get as much love as it should, and I was like, yeah, I've really got to fit this in this video somewhere because it's got to be known that it has great rubber feet. But as you turn it over to look at it, it's really not that great because the front bottom of the console has these two long plastic protrusions and they really do nothing to hold the system in place. And then you go to the back, it has even more plastic protrusions with just tiny little rubber slits in there that really don't do anything. This console will slide all over the place, and as you know, the Turbo is not known for its long cords on its controller, so this thing, you yank on it, it comes right off the shelf. Right off the shelf!
Of course, my top pick is going to the mighty Sega Genesis. It has the same long rubbers as the Master System, but when you attach it to the Sega CD, which also has giant ass rubber feet, and you put these two together, you've got like a plethora of rubber feet all in one. You've got rubber feet sitting on top of the console that has its own rubber feet. The Sega CD is my top choice.
Alright guys, my choice for the best rubber feet on home console is gonna have to go to the Nintendo Wii. Yes, the little white wonder that everybody loved, even your grandma. So this thing, if you look at it, has rubber feet all over the bottom of it, and it even has it on the sides. Nintendo thought of everything for people who have just minimal side space so they can stand it up, and it still has rubber feet for traction. Even though your Wii remote has absolutely no cord attached to the system, they still put it on here. That's awesome. Thanks, Nintendo. You rule. Alright, there you have it. These are our top 2 choices for best rubber feet on home console, but as you know, there can only be one winner.
And that's gonna be the Sega CD OG model.
Yes, and I'm gonna have to concede and say Joe is right. Since we are mainly a classic game show, I've got to go with the classic game system.
Yeah, and we've got a challenge for you, Classic Game Room.
Yeah, the ball's right back in your court. We challenge you to find the best cartridge design for any system.
Best shape, best color, ease of sliding in and out, it's up to you.
Up to you.
What's it gonna be?
That's right.